So good morning. So this work is made on several papers in collaboration with Mohamed Rad from Université Paris-Nord and Pierre Corr from Zediat Systems. So in fact, you know that I'm working much on dynamic programming questions. So at some point, you need to use regression. Well, you can use regression techniques. You have to store in memory many simulations to compute regression quantities. And so at some point, you may face some problem related to memory constraint, available memory in your computer. So that's why we thought about how to relax the constraint on the memory using a different way of simulating quantities, processes, avoiding to store all the quantities we need. So this is the motivation of this work. Okay, so I will first talk about, so the trick to implement this method is to use the capacity of a random number generator to be reversible. Okay, so some of these generators are reversible, some are not. So I will explain, I will briefly present this reversible property for usual random RNG, okay, random number generator. Then I will present a first version of the Euler scheme in a usual forward manner, so you know this. And then I will present the backward version, okay. This first version will be accurate to the order 1/2 as the usual Euler scheme. And in a second version, in fact, we will prove that this second version is accurate to the order 1, in fact. So it will be just a small modification of the first backward Euler scheme here. Okay, and so to analyze the error, you'll see that in fact, well, to write the scheme and to write the dynamic, this is quite easy. But to analyze, this is quite delicate because you're managing quantities that are not anymore adapted because you go forward in time and backward in time. So you are mixing quantities that sometimes are anticipative. And so to derive a proper error analysis, this is a bit intricate. So we had to develop some appropriate tools to discuss the error analysis. And so these appropriate tools are how to approximate compound maps. So what is it? Is it I have a random function here, a random map f, and I'm going to compose this random map with a random variable. And of course, the two quantities may be dependent, and you'd like to discuss what happens if f is approximated by fn and theta by theta n, how the composition is accurate. Okay, so this is the plan of the presentation. So let's move to the first part on how to revert and what is the use of reverting a random number generator. So as explained in the introduction, I'm much involved in this dynamic programming equation. Okay, so typically solving this equation by regression Monte Carlo techniques. Okay, and if you want to go in very high dimension, then you have to simulate many paths, okay, to ensure that the statistical error is very small or small enough. And so you have to store all this memory, all these paths in the memory. Okay. So the general form of this dynamic programming equation is the following one. It is not the most general, but it is a typical form. So typically you know the n. So your process starts from a given function from a process you can simulate, xn. So usually this is a Markov chain here. And then you have to compute backward in time, iteratively, this yi process. Okay. So, but the yi is given by a kind of condition expectation of the next yj process. Okay. So So you have a sequence of nested condition expedition, and so you're going to use the full flow of path to compute all these sequence of condition expedition. So one application of this typically is optimal stopping problem. We know that the VI is the sum over all stopping times of the maximal reward you can expect from time I, okay? And typically when you look at the continuation value, that is the expectation of the value function at next time, then it takes this form of a dynamic programming equation. Also, when you try to solve a backward stochastic differential equation on semi-linear PDEs, you know that you can discretize, you can represent the solution of this PDE as an expedition here. And when you discretize this equation, you obtain this kind of equation. So typically, this is the kind of problem we like to handle. And one possibility, as explained by Turkodiev in the lectures of during the summer school, is to use regression Monte Carlo. So here, this is the time axis here. This is the space, okay? So you're going to start some process from the beginning here. You're going to sample the paths, okay? And then you're going to approximate the value function. So that is here the yi here is a function, a unknown function of the forward component xi. So you want to approximate the unknown function. And to approximate the unknown function, you're going to use some basis functions. Typically here we consider just hypercubes or local polynomials on each hypercube. And so according to the number of paths eating one hypercube, you're going to compute the coefficient, the regression coefficient on that hypercube, and so on and so on. So if you bring everything together in the analysis, we see that we must have a number of paths much larger than the number of coefficients you have to compute, of course. Okay, you cannot learn 100 coefficient with only 50 paths. Okay, so you need much more simulation than the number of coefficients you have to compute. And if you want to make it accurate, in fact, m should be chosen as the number of coefficients times n to the 3, n being the number of time steps in your problem. So you can see that very quickly it can take very huge values, especially because k is the number of coefficients. So this is, of course, is going to increase with the dimension exponentially fast. And so to ensure that the approximation error is very small. So usually k is going to grow like n to some exponent proportional to d. And so you see that when you want, if you want to take n equal to 10, 20, 50, then it's going to be, m going to be huge here. Okay. So there were some tricks, for example, and some example handled in a paper by Aïd, Campi, Langren et Pham. Perhaps some of you are working on this paper on optimal investment in renewable energy. In fact, so they have to decide how to switch between different renewable energies. It was a long horizon problem, so it was written over 40 years, and they have to take 2 decisions per day. So you can imagine 40 years times 2 decisions per day times the number of days per year. Okay, so the number of dates they have to handle simultaneously was 30,000 dates. And then you multiply these dates by the number of simulations you have to cope with. So at the end, you have just something huge. And they were not able to store all the simulation on the computer. Okay? So theoretically, this is the way you should tune the parameters, but in practice, you cannot store the simulation, so you cannot implement you cannot run the code for these regression Monte Carlo techniques. So how to overcome this difficulty? In fact, the trick is not to store all the simulation and to regenerate efficiently the simulation you need. And so for this, we need some properties of the random number generator. So I just recall very quickly what is it. So typically here, what is a RNG? This is just a black box. You start from an initial number, the seed, okay? And then you call the black box and it gives you something, a number which looks like quite erratic in its behavior, okay? So, and this is, it behaves like a pseudo random number generator, okay? So it succeeds in having all the statistical properties you like to have. Okay, so this is just a sequence, and each time you call this black box, then you have a new number, and so on and so on. Okay. So of course, this is very tempting to say, okay, instead of going in that direction, in forward direction for the RNG, is also to be able to go in the backward direction. So that you can invert the way you simulate the numbers. Instead of simulating in a forward way, you'd like to also go backward in your generator. So some usual example of generator are BAT1. So for in Python, this is Mersenne Twiston, which is used. And there's another more recent generator, XSearchShift, which has a smaller pad, but which is usually very simple and fast to implement. Okay, so now we like to revert the generator. And then we will see how to use this for simulating the process we want. Okay. So typically, my number between 0 and 1 is a function. Well, I'm not going to give all the details, but this is a function of an initial value here. So this is the sequence you have here. Okay. You start with the initial value here, and then you get to reiterate at time your generator. So here this is some specific PRNG sequence. You can iterate by just multiplication and composition. And so the question is, if you go in that direction, can you invert your generator to go back just to invert? Once you have this value, is it possible to get the previous value? So this is, for example, possible for the Lécuyer generator. For this Lécuyer generator, the G have this form. So I'm going to. I don't want to enter too much in the details of this, but this is the specification of the G. And so the G here is invertible because of properties of prime numbers. So you can invert the G, and so you can then invert the random generator. Also, the well generators are famous random number generators. So you can also invert this generator. Not all, but there's a list of well generators you can invert. So Panetton Lécuyer has designed 17 well generator, and in fact you can list all the generators, and some of them are invertible. Okay, so there's some tricks to just go forward and backward in your generator without any cost, in fact. Okay, so the trick now is to, if you want to use this possibility reverting the generator with a dynamic programming equation, what you will do is the following. When you simulate, so this is time here, okay, so you have many dates, so you start from the end, so it was the index n here. So usually in regression Monte Carlo you sample some paths here, and when you sample a path, what you do is you call your random generator here, you go forward in generator, and so on and so on. Okay? Then you store all these quantities here, all these, the full paths, in fact. Okay? So the trick here is to remove, not to store all these values, but when you are at the end and you want to compute regression quantities, you will have removed from the memory all these paths, and then you will regenerate the path by just inverting the generator. Okay? So, inverting the generator makes possible the way to regenerate the UI, that is the uniformly distributed random variable. Okay? But if it is very easy to regenerate the UI, it doesn't mean that this is very straightforward to regenerate the process typically. Okay? Because the process here is a complicated function of the Boolean increments, and also the Boolean increments are the function of the UI. Okay? So reverting the process, regenerating the process means a bit more than just inverting the generator here, in fact. So this is what I'm going to explain here. Okay, so what is the forward scheme? Okay, you start from SD here. Okay, so here we are just on the interval 0, 1. We have n time steps. We use the forward scheme, so I just put a right arrow on the X just to tell that this is the forward scheme. Okay, so this is the usual forward scheme. So here as the first result, you know, is essentially the distance between X, the Euler scheme, and the diffusion process is of order 1 over square root n. Okay, but here we need something more. I will explain later why. We need that the distance between the process is uniform in the starting point in a compact set. Okay? So not only you are interested in a single value of your a single starting point, but you like also to have a family of starting point, and you want an estimate which is uniform on this family. Okay? So this is not trivial because you know when you take try to write error estimates, usually when you take the sum over time of a process, if a process is a martingale, then you can use Berkeley-Davis-Gandy inequalities, you can remove the sum and so on and so on. Here, of course, there's no martingale property of the x respect the x variable. This is just a parameter, so you have to find an argument. But still, there's a uniform estimates between the Euler scheme and the forward diffusion, uniform in the starting point, and the rate is still the same. First result, okay, so this is quite easy. Now, how to backward simulate a stochastic differential equation? Okay, so in fact, there's a huge literature on this, not so well known, well developed by, in fact, Kunita in the 90s. It is the techniques of stochastic flows. So people involved in stochastic PDEs are quite familiar with the literature, but I think people involved in usual stochastic analysis, just stochastic differential equation, are not so aware of this kind of result. Okay, so typically, here I'm going to look at the process x as a function of different parameters. So not only time is here as the lower index here, but also as a function of initial time and initial point. Okay. So what we know is that we have, if the coefficients are smooth enough, in fact we have a diffeomorphism between the space for the initial point, so x takes value in Rd, and the ending point here, so that is Rd. So you start from Rd, you go to Rd, and this is a diffeomorphism. So you can consider this the inverse flow, so this is the inverse function. You look at, okay, you are given a point here, and you are just wondering what is the initial point associated to that terminal point here. Okay, so there's a one-to-one correspondence between ending point and starting point. Okay, and in fact you can study the semi-martingale properties of of this inverse flow process. So there's in fact several semi-rectangle properties. Either you can fix S, so fix the starting point and look at the semi-rectangle property respect T, or either you can fix T, the terminal point, and look at the semi-rectangle property respect S. So you do both, and of course you obtain two equations. So in fact this process
S is increasing or decreasing?
S here will be here decreasing. Okay? And this is the way we want to handle the process is that in fact we'd like to revert time. So given a point here, okay, I'm given a point here, I'd like to go back in time. Okay? So I like rather, my point of view would be rather the second point of view with a backward Brownian motion here. So I'd like to fix a point here. I've simulated my process up to here. I've just this value. I'd like now to go backward. So I'd like to start from this capital T point X. So it is, yes, this is that point of view. I'm going to fix T and X, and I'm going to go backward in time just by changing S. Okay? So the right process to simulate, to go backward in time, is in fact that process. To start from a given point Tx in the future, okay, and then go back in time. So it gives rise to the backward Euler scheme. It will be simply a discretization of that equation. So this is the motivation for the Euler scheme, so for the backward scalar scheme. So we go forward in time up to time 1, okay, using the usual forward Euler scheme. Once you are here, this is the starting point for your backward scheme here. Okay, so you simulate this forward process, and then you take the values as a starting point for this backward process. And then you go backward in time using an Euler discretization of this inverse flow here. Okay, so you just have to revert the drift, revert the sigma, or take minus the opposite of the drift, opposite of sigma, and there's a correction term due to the diffusion coefficient. So it gives rise to this equation, and you use, of course, the Brownian increments in the other direction. Okay, so the new term is that one. So this is very easy to simulate, because in fact you just have to generate backward the Brownian increments, but simulating backward these Brownian increments is just reversing the generator and generating backward in backward manner the UI, in fact. Okay, so you could complain, and we could discuss that instead of, it's a bit complicated, that is, instead of simulating this backward Euler scheme, we could simply regenerate the Brownian increments and just wondering, okay, what is the initial value? So you are sitting here, typically, you are sitting here. What was the initial value here, such that with these regenerated Brownian increments, my process at time I plus 1 will be here. So, okay. But you see, so you look for the zero of a function in a way, okay? But in fact, it is a bit complicated because here, the Lipschitz constant of this function is random, okay, because of Brownian increments. So it's not clear that you can invert this quite easily and quite efficiently. So what we prefer is directly to have this backward approximation. It avoids any Picard or iterative procedure just to find the zero of these of the difference in these of the two terms here. So now the question we can ask, okay, is what is the difference between the distance between the backward Euler scheme and the forward SD at the same time. So that is there is a forward Euler scheme, then we go backward in time. We like to know what the distance between the backward scheme and the initial diffusion, okay? Do we lose something doing this? And also, what is the distance between the backward scheme and the forward one at the same time, okay? Okay, so you see, it is not so easy to analyze. You can imagine why, because here you use, here this is an Euler scheme, but the initial value is random and depends on the other Euler scheme. Okay, so you use the same Brennan motion to generate the initial point position and then the evolution of this backward scheme. Okay, so here there's something to do to develop to be able to analyze this kind of composition of approximation. And so this is the result we have. So for this we have a result. So we're going to embed this problem in a more general problem, which is the following. We have two random quantities, so random map F going from one space to another space, a random variable theta, so in RD, okay. So typically in the previous slides, so here we have F theta. In the previous slides, what we have is a backward scheme at a given time, starting from a Euler scheme, forward scheme at time 1. Okay? So typically, the theta will be the forward Euler scheme, and the random map will be the backward Euler scheme parameterized by the initial point. Okay. So we're going to produce an approximation of the random map F, an approximation of the theta. Okay. What is the rate for the approximation between the two quantities, the composition? Okay. Is there any generic tools to do this? So in fact, there's an assumption. So essentially, it says that what is important? Essentially, the F, the random map here, has to be order of an exponent kappa. Okay. So you can think that in the case of SD, kappa is equal 1. In fact, this is we know that this is a diffeomorphism, C1 diffeomorphism, even more if you have more smoothness on the coefficient. So kappa is equal 1 here for this case. So we have a kind of uniform control of the Lipschitz constant, uniform compact set. Then there's a uniform control between the random map and its approximation uniformly in the initial point. Okay, so it means that here we will need a uniform control for the backward Euler scheme starting from a fixed point compared to the diffusion process typically, but we need it to be, we need an estimate uniform in the starting point. And then we need some growth condition on the random maps. And on the theta parameter, so the random variable here or here, in fact, we just need to have a strong approximation between the two quantities. And all these estimates are in LP. So we are considering strong convergence. And the result is quite easy. Well, quite easy to understand, is that the distance between the composition of my two maps, two approximated by compared to the exact one, is bounded by the approximation I have. So let me see. The approximation I have on the F, so this rate of convergence is the rate of convergence between the Fn and the F. Here, okay. So there's of course one first error between the Fn and the F, plus an error coming from the distance between theta n and theta to the exponent kappa being the Holder continuity, regularity of the F. Okay. So essentially, if the rate of convergence for the F is gamma F, the rate of convergence for the theta is gamma theta, And if kappa is the order regularity of F, then the order of convergence is the minimal order between the gamma F and the kappa gamma theta. Okay? So you take the worst rate, so it's quite easy to understand. Okay, so if you apply these, don't read the proof, but this is just an application of the previous estimates. If you apply these to distance between the Euler scheme, the backward Euler scheme, and the forward process, this is exactly a direct application of what we have. We directly have 1 over square root n because we have the approximation for this term is 1 over square root n. For this term, this is also 1 over square root n for any fixed initial point. And when you compose the quantities, then you still have 1 over square root n because this, the map for the 4 here, this is the Euler scheme, so perhaps I can put an n here. Okay. If I use for the diffusion the same notation here, this map as a function of the timing point is very smooth, is Lipschitz plus other additional. It is very smooth according to the regulator of the coefficient. So you are really in the position to apply the previous result. So in fact, just by regenerating backward the Euler scheme, you just maintain the same order of convergence between the initial process and the backward scheme. So there's no loss of accuracy. And of course, as a corollary of this, the distance between the backward Euler scheme and the forward one is still of order 1 over square root n. So now what we like to do is, in fact, to be more accurate than this, is that we like to maintain a better accuracy than 1 over square root n. 1 over square root n is just the distance between the backward, the usual forward scheme and the SDE. And so here we like to be, to introduce something which is smaller than 1 over square root n. Just by reverting the generator, we don't modify too much the accuracy on the Euler scheme. So the question is it possible to have 1 over n? Of course, if we just apply the previous argument with the same scheme, it's not possible. So we have to modify the scheme, and this is the second version of the scheme. Yes. So before, if you remember, can you remember? Yes, I'm going to go backward. It was the backward Euler scheme for the backward SDE. Here there was a drift term, additional drift term, related to the diffusion coefficient here. There was a term 1 over n here. 1 over n here. I'm going to replace, in fact, 1 over n. This is also the variance of the Brunel increments. Okay? So sometimes we use, you know, that you use the rule of thumb that 1 over n could be okay, there's an echo, could be approximated by the, let's say, the product of two Brunel increments. Okay? This is rather an idea. If you average these, at the end you have something accurate. This is the basis for the basic argument for approximating quadratic variation typically. Okay, so here what we're going to replace is the 1 over n by just a product, a suitable product of Brunel increments. And it will give rise to the second Euler scheme. So typically what we will do is simply put Brunel increment here, and typically this replace the these two products will replace the 1 over n before. Okay. And for this scheme, what we can prove is that this scheme does not deteriorate the accuracy for the forward scheme. We can regenerate the forward scheme with an accuracy of order 1 over n. Okay. Okay. In fact, we can prove even more. Is that typically So I have to admit that there's still a gap in the proof of this theorem, a small gap. So in dimension 1 this is correct, but in dimension D there's something missing. Okay, but we can prove a central limit theorem for this for the distance between the forward scheme and the backward scheme. That is. And the central limit theorem holds at the rate n. So that is n times the renormalized error. So this is a functional central limit theorem. This process will converge at to a stochastic integral plus a drift part here, bounded variation part. And in fact, this process, in fact, will be zero at the terminal time, of course, because the two processes here coincide at the end. Okay, so this is not a usual limiting process where usually the error is zero at the beginning and it is large at the end. Here this is zero at the end and it can be arbitrary at the beginning. Okay. Okay, so in fact when we analyze all these errors, this is a bit cumbersome to write. There are some preliminary estimates, but essentially the trick is to identify that the main error term in this quantity is explicit adapted quantity, which we call the Ln, okay? And Ln is just an explicit, quite explicit, with some explicit coefficient I'm not going to write here, an explicit sum of powers of Brownian increments. So you can write everything explicit, and here the coefficients are adapted to the ambient filtration. Okay. What is a bit unusual is that you have a sum between k and the terminal index, but this is just a detail, in fact. So in fact, the error here is approximated at the main order by a simple process, simple adapted process in a way. And so we can prove the central limit theorem for this process, and so we obtain the result we need for the initial error here. Okay, so to check these, to check the accuracy between all these approximations, what we're going to plot typically in the experiments are, for example, we're going to plot the error here as a function of that one. We should obtain, of course, something very, very accurate. This one is very close to that quantities. So with sample points, it should be very, very clear. So typically here, what we compute is n times the renormalized error between, so this is the renormalized error between the forward scheme and the backward scheme, against the renormalized L, the L being the first order approximation of the error. Okay. And so each time you see that if we plot many simulations, so here we have hundreds of simulation of these, you see that the two quantities coincide. Okay, they are very. It is really. They are very close to each other at the rate 1/n to the 3/2 as mentioned here. And it is quite in this term. Okay, and we also you see that the range of variation of these is just a unit. Well, almost the unit interval. So this is the case with linear coefficient. So this is quite easy because in that case you can compute everything quite explicitly. Now, if you have a nonlinear diffusion coefficient, this is almost the case. So here we have different time steps. So here I think this is. Yes. This is n equal 10. Okay, so 10 time steps, 100 time step, 1000, 10,000. Okay. So of course we should observe the asymptotic behavior of this error. Okay. So you see that when you increase n, indeed the error between the forward and the backward behaves really like predicted in the theorem. And this is the same when in dimension 2 with a nonlinear drift coefficient. We observe the same phenomenon. This is the error behaves really like the main term we mentioned before. So that is this ln term, which is explicit and adaptive. Okay. Okay. So this technique has been implemented in American option problem, for example. Okay. Just to avoid to store all the simulation here. You just have, of course, the results are the same. It is not more accurate than before. This is just less constraining regarding the memory on the computer. Okay. So you obtain the same numerical result, the same accuracy, but without all the memory problems you have to face in large dimension. So to summarize, okay. So there's a way to resample Euler scheme using backward regeneration of Brandon increments. Okay, you just have to revert the random number generator, and it is possible for many random generators. Okay, so I think it could be very useful to save memory for regression Monte Carlo techniques, because we know that the most painful part of regression techniques is due to storing simulation. You have to store the coefficient, but also the simulation. So here we avoid to store everything. If we have n times to at which we have to store the simulation, here we just need to store 1 or 2 dates only. By the way, on the way to prove this, that this scheme does not alter the accuracy in what we have simulated. In fact, we have developed some new approximation result related to composition of stochastic maps. Okay, so that is random maps composed by another random variable. What if we approximate both quantities by some schemes? Okay. So there are many other applications of this result. Okay, so typically I can mention that if you want typically approximate, if you take a fractional Brandon motion with Earth index h, okay, and you want to evaluate, to simulate this fractional Brandon motion at random time theta, and theta could be different from stopping time. So typically it could be the sup. So the last time before 1, such that typically another process it's 0. So the last 0 for another Brandon motion of what you want. Okay. So of course this is not a stopping time. Okay. WH is not a sum martingale. Okay. Well, except in Brandon motion case. So you cannot apply the usual result. And what if you approximate your Brandon motion, your fractional Brandon motion by another a discrete approximation of the fractional Brandon motion, so you can use Series expansion and so on. And if you approximate the theta by a discrete version of this random time here. Okay? So typically here, with the result I've mentioned, we are able to approximate the order of accuracy of this approximation. This is quite straightforward, in fact. In fact, there are also many approximations you can derive in the field of stochastic PDEs. some stochastic PDEs can be generated, can be simulated by a composition of stochastic flows. Okay, this is partly explained in the book of Kunita. And so we are again in the field of approximating a random map by a random variable by a random map composition and so on. And this scheme also, this composition of Euler scheme was the basis also for giving a solution, an explicit solution, a numerical solution to computing what we call progressive stochastic utilities. This is a form of stochastic PDEs derived by Musillar, Zarifopoulos, Alcaroui, Imrad. Okay, and so far there was no really good numerical methods to solve these kind of stochastic utilities problems. And now, just by composition of flows and inverse flows, this is quite straightforward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gobet, for his talk. Are there any questions?
Very nice. I was wondering, the Navier-Stokes, there is a formulation of Navier-Stokes where you can consider it as some kind of flow on diffeomorphisms and with the Brownian motion. I don't have it by my mind, but do you think that this kind of technique might be used to play with Navier-Stokes? Have you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have not looked at this problem so far. So.
Because there's some, like Derry Holmes and Tudorat, who have been looking at Navier-Stokes from this Hamiltonian perspective, but with some kind of let's say, Brownian increment. Anyway, I was trying to look that, but I didn't.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, because I don't know really if this happens, but the fact that you have a pseudo-random generator that it's invertible, does it mean that you lose something from the point of view of statistics? Do you have a loss from the point of view of the variance of the or the type of results you can obtain?
No, I don't think so. If you assume really that if you believe in your random number generator, we can discuss on this, is it really random or not, but if you believe in it, okay, the results just say that essentially you can do it safely because you don't lose any accuracy in what you simulate. You regenerate, but with a smaller error. Okay, so essentially the variance of your quantities are as before, essentially.
But precisely my question was if perhaps the family of generators that are invertible have less or have, let's say,
okay.
Are less consistent, or perhaps are less reliable as generators. That was more my...
Okay, I don't know. I've not tested myself all the generators we try here just to see if they succeed in, if they pass all the statistical tests. I think they're quite well known and quite famous, so, but I couldn't reply accurately, so I don't know.
Thanks.
Any other question? Okay, let's thank again Professor
Okay, thank you.